It is a pleasure to make your acquaintance, Zenjirou-sama. I am the wife of Count Manuel Marquez of the County of Marquez in the Carpa Kingdom, Octavia. I am greatly honored to undertake the important duty as your tutor on this occasion. I might be ignorant and lacking expertise, but I will do everything in my might. The lady spoke in a soft voice pleasant to the ears, then bowed deeply. The Lady Octavia raised her head with the same fluid movement she had used to lower it. I see. She's the so-called model of a lady in this country. Yeah, she definitely deserves the title. Gorgeous, trim, virtuous. These words naturally popped up in his head as he looked at Octavia's face. Straight black hair that radiated beautifully. Jet black eyes you rarely even saw in a Japanese. And light brown skin that was pale for someone of a southern country and closer to a yellowish white, standing in contrast to the color of her eyes and hair. Zenjirou ordered. Lift your face. Yes. The Lady Octavia raised her head with the same fluid movement she had used to lower it. I'm Zenjirou, Queen Aura's husband. I don't know how long our acquaintance will last, but I want us to be on good terms. Yes, you honor me with your words. When Zenjirou recited the words he had desperately thought up in his head, Octavia lowered her head creditable. Well then, let's hear about what you will be teaching me, Lady Marquez. Take a seat. Zenjirou offered Octavia a seat. Yes, pardon me. Octavia showed a momentary surprise to his offer, but remembered what she was here for right away and obediently sat down on the couch. After Zenjirou made sure that Octavia had seated herself, he slowly lowered his bottom onto the chair, too. Sitting across Octavia on the chair with a table in between them, Zenjirou listened to her explanation about her plan and methods to study manners, common sense and magic, from start to end. Zenjirou put the summary of the contents he had made in his head into words, whereupon Octavia replied with a soft smile. Yes. Manners and common sense are hardly something that can be taught verbally. You already seem to have an understanding about a general conduct, so I believe this way will prove to be more efficient. And you will have lunch together with me from now on? Yes. Manners and common sense apply the most at the dining table. I concluded it would be the best opportunity to teach about these two. Indeed. She had a point there. No matter how much you heard about manners, you wouldn't adopt them that way. However, it was a bit annoying, considering that a teacher would watch his manners and common sense during meals every day from now on. Okay. If you say that's the best way, I've no objections. Let's do it that way. Octavia smiled softly to Zenjirou's words and lowered her head. Thank you very much. Then let me get straight to the point already. Earlier when I entered the room, you greeted me after standing up from the couch, correct? Ah! Zenjirou unconsciously leaked a natural voice when she pointed out a mistake at once. Octavia was very careful not to sound reproachful and continued. I am honored that you greet someone such as myself in a way, however, considering your position, if you should greet someone of a lower standing in such a way they will most likely think poorly of you. Likewise, you offered me a seat while remaining standing yourself, but this is a wasted kindness as well. Manners and common sense change according to the other party and situation, so it is malapropos to predefine anything, but it is expected that royalty show a bit more comfortable response. Okay. I'll be careful of that from now on. Oh damn, I thought I was being careful, but my salaryman's soul kicked in again. Octavia smiled comforting as she saw through his internal struggle and broached the next subject with a composed voice. Then allow me to begin with explaining the basis of magic for today. If there is anything unclear or not understandable, please speak up and I will answer you to the best of my knowledge. Yes, please do. Zenjirou-sama, that please, Right. You are allowed to begin your explanation. I will begin my explanation about the basis of magic now. We can classify magic into two groups. The first group is the four-element magic that can be more or less used by everyone. The other group is the bloodline magic that only people with a unique lineage can use. Does four elements refer to earth, water, fire, air and the bloodline to space-time magic? Octavia didn't seem to be offended by Zenjirou's interjection and replied with a nod and a smile. Yes, that is correct. Just, when you put aside the point that the bloodline magic cannot used by anyone except a person with the special lineage, it is no different from the four-element magic in its foundation. There are three conditions necessary to activate magic: the correct intonation, correct perception, and the correct amount of magical power. Intonation, perception, and amount of magical power. Given that, it sounded like the magic often found in games or books, but he didn't understand anything concrete. The private tutor could tell from Zenjirou's expression that he didn't understand a thing and started to explain with the aid of a concrete example. First of all, magic has an exclusive language. We simply call it magic language, and the magic will not activate unless you use it. Please watch me. Saying so, Octavia put up the index finger of her right hand. And then, oh, invisible water scattered in the air, gather at my finger and form a sphere. As compensation, I will make 18 offerings of magical power to the water spirit. In the next moment after Zenjirou heard that, a transparent water sphere floated above Octavia's fingertip. Zenjirou had no time to be surprised at that phenomena, as he was speechless about something else. What was that just now? Octavia-san only opened her mouth for a brief moment, but I heard a ridiculous long sentence. He could swear that Octavia hadn't opened her mouth long enough just now for saying a sentence that long. Zenjirou had no clue what was going on, whereupon Octavia put the water ball she had created at her fingertip just now into her empty teacup and deeply bowed to him. My deepest apologies, Zenjirou-sama. I have been thoughtless. The magic language is an incredibly difficult language, as the slightest variation in volume, accent or hyphenation can change its meaning, but in exchange, it is possible to pack a lot of meanings into a short sound. Due to that, a person who hears the magic language for the first time gets overwhelmed by the vast amount of information in the short sound. Let me apologize again for forgetting about that. Please forgive me. Saying so, Octavia bowed down so deeply that he could see the white nape of her neck. Zenjirou shook his head a bit and replied, if that's true, it would have happened anyway. You might be at fault for not explaining it first, but you apologized, so everything's fine. Continue with the explanation. Then I will continue now. Just now, I chanted with the correct intonation and correct perception, offering the correct amount of magical power. As a result, the magic to create a water sphere activated. Next I will show you what happens when I purposefully falsify these three. After Octavia said that, she put up the index finger of her right hand again and chanted the spell. Ermugio. The short chant was completely incomprehensible to Zenjirou's ears. However, the magic didn't activate. Just now, I mistook the intonation for a bit on purpose. The meaning becomes distorted from just that and the spell does not activate. Next I will chant the spell with the correct intonation, but with a mistaken perception. Saying so, Octavia opened her mouth for a brief moment and uttered a short sound just like before. Oh, invisible water scattered in the air, gather at my finger and form a sphere. As compensation, I will make 18 offerings of magical power to the water spirit. This time, Zenjirou heard the same long sentence like on the first successful try, but no water sphere appeared at Octavia's finger. Just now, I imagined the activation of a different spell while chanting the correct spell. The result is as you can see. Then lastly, I will use the correct intonation and perception, but input the wrong amount of magical power on purpose. Oh, invisible water scattered in the air, gather at my finger and form a sphere. As compensation, I will make 20 offerings of magical power to the water spirit. The fourth water sphere spell of today was accurately heard by Zenjirou. However, there was no outcome as expected. Octavia smiled a bit at Zenjirou, who looked at her and explained. This time, I made 20 offers of magical power in place 18. As a result, the activation of the spell failed. Zenjirou listened to her words, more or less convinced, but then raised a surprised voice. Wait a sec, too much is no good either. Yes. The magic will neither activate with too less nor with too much offerings. Large magic that consumes a lot of magical power will ignore a small difference, but small magic is strict about its amount of magical power. One did not even need to spare a thought about whether it was easier to fill a glass to the brim by pouring water from a 100 milliliters bottle or from a 10 L bottle. Zenjirou was pretty excited and thrilled about the fact that he would be able to use magic himself at some point. However, he might not get any chance as he mightn't be suited to small magic due to his great magical power. Does that mean that someone with large amount of mana is not suited for learning basic magic? Yes. In fact, I have heard that Her Highness Aura can only use a large-scale annihilation fire magic besides the space-time magic. A large magic like that consumes not only a lot of magical power, it also has an extremely long chant, so it is not unusually that it takes months for one to be able to recite the intonation correctly and precisely. The more he heard, the farther away moved the day he would be able to use magic. Then I'll be frank, how long will it take for me to activate magic when I start learning from today on? At some point, he had forgotten the main point, his study about manners and common sense, and asked Octavia that. Octavia keenly guessed what Zenjirou was after, but as his teacher, she couldn't bring herself to lie, so she shrunk her slender body, ducked her head and answered honestly. Normally, it takes 2 years to become aware of one's own magical power and another year of practice to control it at will. 3 years. Zenjirou uttered with a groan, whereat Octavia quickly tried to patch up things. But the rest is relatively simple once you have control over that, because you only have to learn the correct intonation, draw a vivid picture of it in your head and accurately pour magical power into it. You can learn a simple spell within a day. As she remembered that she had just told him that he was not suited for such simple spells, her words had lost their vigor in the middle of her sentence and she looked apologetic at Zenjirou with upturned eyes. That look cooled down Zenjirou's head. Okay. Then let's take it slowly. Teach me well, Octavia. Certainly. Please leave it to me, Zenjirou-sama. The female tutor answered the prince consort, who recovered himself in no time, faithful with a soft smile. On a second thought, there was no need for him to learn magic. It was merely better to know it as an etiquette for a royalty with great magical power, so there was no problem when the study lasted for 3 to 5 years. Either way, it doesn't seem like magic will be useful for my life, even when I learn it. At night time. So, how did it go? Tell me your impression. Zenjirou was a bit surprised on Aura's sudden question, but he lowered his beer can and replied honestly. Yeah, let's see, to summarize it, it was more tiring than I expected. My lack of manners was pointed out numerous times. Especially during lunch. I barely remember what I ate. Sorry for the troubles. Don't sweat it. It's necessary, right? Besides, the magic lessons are fun. Well, it certainly depressed me that it'll take me 3 years until I can use magic, though. Well, there are no shortcuts to magic after all. You can only work hard at it if you want to learn it. Or to put it differently, anyone can learn it with enough time. As long as you do not give up midway, the effort will be by no means in vain. Aura said that, then took the arm of her husband and pressed it into her deep cleavage as to encourage him. Aura! Then the queen surprised her husband, who narrowed his eyes to slits from the soft sensation, by whispering into his ear with a mischievous smile. So, how was Octavia Dano? I guess you find her charming, too? His wife uttered the name of another woman. Zenjirou had done nothing to feel guilty about, yet he flinched out of reflex, maybe out of a habit as a man. Keeping a firm hold on his arm as to not let him escape, Aura pressed him on, whereat Zenjirou answered while letting his gaze drift towards the ceiling. Yeah. She's certainly beautiful and very friendly. Yep, I can see why her type is so popular in this country. Oh ho. He got the feeling that Aura's voice as she gave a short reply, was somewhat lower than usual. You mean, she looked desirable to you as well? Zenjirou wasn't so dense that he wouldn't notice that the mood of his wife took a turn for the worse. Well, she's certainly in my strike zone, but more like a borderline pitch. I would have trouble hitting even a strong fastball right in the center, if I were to carelessly take a swing. However, his promptly couched excuse was completely incomprehensible to someone of this world. She showed a complacent smile, then asked him again in a desire for more straightforward words. So, what do you mean to say? Be more precise. Well, I mean, if it had been Octavia-san, who summoned me here on the first day, instead of you, then I wouldn't be here now. While saying so, he felt his own face turning red. Zenjirou kept facing the ceiling and glanced to the side to take a peek at his wife's reaction. Aura's red hair fluttered in the corner of his vision. Fa. I see. Aura laughed amused. Apparently his answer was good enough to sway her heart. I, too, could not be happier that you were the one being summoned. The queen declared that, then Zenjirou felt her hot and wet lips pressing down on his cheek. In the middle of the night. Aura slept intimately with her husband Zenjirou in the same bed as always. When she woke up past midnight, she carefully got off the bed as not to wake the soundly sleeping Zenjirou. As not to wake up Zenjirou, she slowly took one careful step after another. Then she successfully left the room without rousing her husband. Now in the living room, Aura turned on only one LED lamp and quickly got dressed under its light. Aura, wearing a blue one-piece without sleeves, sat down on the leather couch and rang the bell on the table. Thereupon, a single waiting maid entered the room after a while. She must have walked down the dark hallway by relying on the light of the candle holder in her hand. She narrowed her eyes a bit to slits towards the bright LED lamp as her eyes had been used to the darkness. You called, Your Highness. The waiting maid made a respectful bow. Aura glanced at her, crossed her legs on the couch and said, Give me your report. The faithful attendant started to speak about what she had seen today, careful not to be subjective, upon her master's order. Very well. As far as I could tell, Octavia-sama showed no suspicious behavior. She undertook her duty as Zenjirou-sama's private tutor faithful. Good. I guess she is just scouting out things after all. After hearing the report, Aura mumbled that to herself. She couldn't let down her guard just yet, but it seemed like she didn't have to be so sensitive about it from now. Okay. From now on, only report if there is anything suspicious about Octavia Dano. As you command. Now then, how does my husband spend his days lately? Did he get close to any other woman? Aura had asked this question the waiting maids numerous times already. However, even this time, the maid shook her head a bit troubled and gave the same reply as the ones before. No. Let alone touching anyone, Zenjirou-sama rarely ever looks at the women with such eyes. In the first place, Zenjirou-sama tends to be against us entering the room. Therefore we do not enter the room unless we have business to take care of. On the other hand, Zenjirou-sama always moves into a different room when we come for cleaning. Aura nodded to the report of the waiting maid and gave her instructions. I see. I am repeating myself, but my husband is not good at expressing himself like wanting this or wanting that. He perceives it as a negative virtue to express such desires. I know it may be difficult to serve him, but have regards for his feelings and try your best to meet his demands. Very well. As you command. Okay, you can go. Thanks. Aura suddenly felt thirsty and wanted to drink a cup of water before returning to the bedroom. She went over to the 5-door refrigerator in the corner of the living room and took a water jug out of it. Fa! Pouring the water from the jug into a glass, she emptied the glass in one go, then conversed with herself in the dimly lit room. I see, Zenjirou does not even take notice of Octavia Dano or the waiting maids. Aura involuntarily started to laugh. How should she name this feeling? Aura unconsciously embraced her own body with her arms. To say it in an offensive way, it was a sense of superiority. The joy of having a particular man fawning only over herself. She never expected that being loved by someone of the opposite sex would be so pleasant. Not good. I kind of want to have him all to myself now. A few days after Zenjirou started to take lessons from Octavia. Octavia returned to the Marquez residence in the capital quite near the palace after a long time. Before long, Octavia reached the front entrance of the residence and the large double door swung open inwards. Welcome home, Octavia-sama. I am back, Sir Leo. Is he in his usual room? Octavia inquired with butler. Yes, and the master is awaiting you on the second floor. The faithful butler respectfully nodded to the mistress' words. Octavia met face-to-face with her husband, Count Manuel Marquez, in a room of the residence for the first time in half a month. Welcome back, Octavia. Count Marquez stood up from the couch, which showed traces of aging, spread his arms and greeted his second wife that was more than 30 years younger than him.